All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, the off-season has begun for the New York Jets as they failed to qualify for the playoffs for the 12th consecutive year, excuse me. 2 months ago, there was some optimism for the Jets that they'd end their drought as they were 6-3. But going 1-7 over the final 8 games, which included losing six in a row to end the season, just destroyed those hopes. And in watching the Jets play this season, it was clear as day that they were done in by their offense as New York failed to score at least 20 points in any of their final 5 games of the season, which included getting a combined 15 points over the final 3 games. The Jets' last touchdown of the season came in the fourth quarter of their Week 15 loss to the Detroit Lions, as had their offense been slightly better, there is no doubt in my mind that New York would be getting ready to participate in the postseason this weekend. Now, the off-season house cleaning has already begun at Florham Park as the Jets and offensive coordinator Michael LaFleur agreed to mutually part ways earlier this week. Now, under LaFleur, the Jets offense was 25th in total yards this past season, while they were 29th in points per game. And with LaFleur's departure, in my opinion, he should not be the only one in Florham Park who is on notice. I say this because in talking to a small group of reporters earlier this week, Jets team owner Woody Johnson basically said that his team is a quarterback away from ending their playoff drought. Johnson was also asked about the possibility of spending money on a veteran quarterback, to which he responded, absolutely, and even added on to that by calling the quarterback position the missing piece. Johnson then added to that by commenting on the defense, saying, quote, our defense was an unbelievable story that you saw this year from last place to close to the top defense in terms of every measurable. If you can do the same thing on offense, it looks pretty good, right? End quote. Now, defensively, the Jets were fifth in the NFL in yards allowed this season and fourth in points per game. Defensively, the Jets were good enough to win. We know this. And like Johnson, you have to wonder where this team would be if there was more semblance of order on offense. Now, I've said it before and I will continue to say it. Jets quarterback Zach Wilson is on notice. And like I've said before, under no circumstance can the Jets allow him to be their starting quarterback or on this roster heading into next season. Now, in 2 years as the Jets starting quarterback, Wilson's record is 8-14, a completion percentage of 55, 15 touchdowns to 18 interceptions. But the biggest and most telling sign for me is Wilson does not have the locker room, and the fans and the media in the New York area have turned on him as well. Just look back to that Jacksonville game towards the end of the season. Now, outwardly, Jets head coach Robert Saleh and general manager Joe Douglas are saying what they have to say, but they cannot keep Wilson as they be sealing their own fates with the organization. The Jets are definitely going to attempt to upgrade the quarterback position this offseason, in spite of what uh, Douglas and Saleh are saying. And when the owner is having press conferences about it, it's not a matter of if, but more like when New York is going to have themselves a new starting quarterback. Now, of course, the question becomes trading Zach Wilson. And like I've said before, if you're the Jets, you're not going to get quote unquote fair value for Wilson. I know that he was taken second overall when he was drafted, but there's no team out there that's going to give the Jets a first round pick. And honestly, for Zach Wilson, you'd be lucky if you got a third or fourth rounder. Be honest with you. It's something where the Jets are just going to have to cut bait and just move on in a different direction. And I think at this point, it would be best for both Zach Wilson and the New York Jets to go in their separate ways. I've said that before and I'll continue to say it. I think the Jets can trade Zach Wilson, but they have to be realistic about it. It's probably going to be a mid-round pick, maybe a conditional pick, based on how much he plays and how he plays. So you look. The other question is: would the Jets trade for a quarterback or simply sign a free agent? I think the Jets are going to keep all options on the table right now, because if you're Joe Douglas and you're Robert Sala, this is a make or break move right here. Because, like I talked about during this year, and I'm not the only person who said this, the Jets got a lot better and they did it quicker than most people expected, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We saw when Mike White was inserted into the starting lineup when he was healthy, how much better that the offense looked. And, as good as Mike White was, Mike White is not the long term answer for the Jets at the quarterback position. He cannot stay healthy. He's a backup. That's all it is. But he was the best option for this Jets team as compared to Zach Wilson. But I think all options are going to be on the table this offseason for the Jets to upgrade this quarterback position, with the exception of drafting another quarterback, because the Jets right now, I don't think that they're in a position to start over at that position. And on top of that, they have to find an offensive coordinator first. They have to find an offensive coordinator who's somewhat on the same page with Robert Sala. Obviously, Mike LaFleur was his hire. So how are you going to fix that? And then you have to find an offensive coordinator that's going to be on the same page with the quarterback that you bring in. And it's going to be a veteran quarterback back. And I think this past season showed how important it is for a quarterback, offensive coordinator, and head coach to all be on the same page when you're bringing in a veteran quarterback. Just ask the Denver Broncos how things worked out this past season with Russell Wilson. So the time is now for me for the Jets to make moves, because young defensive players such as Quentin Williams are looking to get paid, and rightfully so. So you have to bring somebody in there that is going to balance this team, somebody who's going to be able to win over this locker room, and more importantly, somebody who is going to be able to lead. And these are things that they have not gotten from Zach Wilson so far. And the Jets need is a legit quarterback, because in today's game, you need that guy at that position in order to win. But more importantly, you need that guy in order to keep up in the AFC, because if you're going to try to keep up with the big boys of the AFC, you got to have that quarterback. You think about Cincinnati with Joe Burrow, Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes, Buffalo with Josh Allen. We're seeing the emergence of Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, Justin Herbert with the Chargers, just to name a few. And there are more coming down the pike. So you have to be able to have that guy. And if you don't have that guy, you're just wasting another year of this defense, which could be even more stellar next season, depending on how things go in the offseason for Gang Green. So the question is going to be, what are the Jets going to do? And for me, when Woody Johnson made the comments that he made, I feel like Zach Wilson's bag should be packed. Because let's go back a little bit on this. Let's say the Jets decide that, what, they feel that Zach Wilson is fixable. It's a scenario where, what, going into the offseason, going into the OTAs, that's all the questions that everybody on this team is going to be asked by the media. These are the questions that Robert Sala and Joe Douglas are going to be consistently asked. They're going to be all of the questions in training camp. And the thing is this: if you bring Zach Wilson back, every incomplete pass, every interception, every mistake that he makes, whether it be small or big, is going to be questioned. And every time it's done in a home game at MetLife Stadium, the boo birds are going to come out. Then you might have some naysayers within the locker room. So if you're the Jets, you just need to move on and start fresh. Now, again, Sala and Douglas can say whatever they want to publicly, and some of it they have to say it, because they cannot come out and say, well, you know what, we want to move on from this guy, because other teams around the league are going to know, guess what, you're ready to cut bait. And they will probably try to get Zach Wilson at a cheaper rate than you want him to be traded in the first place. There's also a rumor that maybe the Jets are worried about, Zach Wilson going someplace else and turning things around. that's a risk that you have to make because I feel like whoever the quarterback is going to be for the Jets next season, whether it's Zach Wilson or somebody else, Joe Douglas and Robert Sala, especially Robert Sala, have sealed their fate with the Jets. If it works, fine. If it doesn't, he's going to be gone. And I'll tell you like this, Robert Sala got off to a strong start and it came apart in the second half of the season, most notably because the Jets had the issues at the quarterback position. But if the Jets have another season like they did this year or they fall short of the playoffs, I guarantee you Robert Sala will not be the head coach of the Jets in 2024. So, with that said, when you have a coach that might be coaching for his position, he's going to do whatever it takes in order to win and get to the postseason. And for Robert Sala to do whatever it takes and get to the postseason with the Jets in 2023, Zach Wilson cannot be his guy. It's the unfortunate part of the business, but it is a business. And at the end of the day, this is what the Jets have to do. They have had a struggle for years as far as drafting and developing quarterbacks. And like I've said before, and I will continue to say it, the Jets organization continues to be looking for the next Joe Namath. That guy does not exist. You look at it right now, you have a defense that is stellar. And if the Jets had been able to have gotten to the postseason with this defense, they definitely could have done some damage. But make no mistake about it, they have to upgrade the quarterback position. Zach Wilson is not the answer for this team. He could be the answer for somebody else in the right system if he is developed, like I've said before. But nonetheless, the Jets have to go in a different direction next season at the most important position on the gridiron. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.